What's up, guys? Welcome to Moving Backwards, Episode 1. I cannot tell you guys how excited I am for this series. This is a series I've been dying to make for quite a long time now, and something that I've had a lot of requests for on my Instagram and YouTube channel, but it kind of took me a while to get all the pieces together because I wanted to do this the right way when I did it. So I wanted to start by saying this. This series is going to be aimed at 3 specific groups of people: believers, quitters, and questioners. Believers meaning people who still have a firm belief in their Christian faith, who believe all the essential doctrines of Christianity. I would like to invite you guys into a conversation because the first thing you need to understand is that I am on your side. All the essential basic things that you believe in, I believe in as well. The significance of Jesus, of the Bible, the sovereignty of God, all of these things, I'm on your side with. I just believe in them in maybe a different way or from a different perspective than you do. But in this series, we're going to cover all these topics and maybe introduce some new ideas to you that you maybe haven't considered before. 2 is for the quitters, people who have just said, enough is enough, screw religion, I want nothing to do with it. God, the Bible, Jesus, get it out of my face. Not so fast. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater because nobody understands where you're coming from better than I do. I know how frustrating it can be when you've been confronted with the hypocrisy and the bigotry of religion, so much that you just decide to throw it all out. There is so much gold and truth and life behind religion that is worth saving and worth hanging on to. And 3 is for the questioners, people who are on the fence. You still believe in the main tenets of Christianity, but you're starting to doubt a lot of things. You're starting to see that a lot of these ideas don't make any sense. They're not consistent. They don't line up with what you know and experience of God in your heart. They don't line up with the God revealed in Jesus. This series is especially for you. I want to show you why the questions you're asking are the right questions, and they're going to lead you to the ultimate truth of the true gospel message of Jesus. And that is where this whole series is leading. So if you belong to any one of those 3 groups, then strap in your seatbelts and let's get ready to have a real, raw, and authentic conversation. I want you guys to also know that at the end of every episode, I'm going to be answering 3 questions or comments about the previous week's episode. Anything that you want to rebuttal, or you have a different viewpoint on, or you have a question about, you need clarity about, drop a comment below and I'll pick the 3 most relevant comments and questions to answer at the end of every episode. And before I begin, I know there's some of you probably thinking, who is this guy? Why does he have the credentials to talk about this stuff? Why should we listen to you, man? And that's a fair question. So I was actually born and raised as a pastor's kid in the Silicon Valley. My dad was the main pastor of the fastest growing and largest evangelical church in the Bay Area in the early 90s. I was in church 2 to 3 days a week. I started playing in the worship team at a young age. I went to a Christian high school and I went to Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma for college because I wanted to be a pastor and sort of follow in my dad's footsteps. So I went to ORU and I got my bachelor's degree in theology. I've taken hermeneutics 1 and 2. I've taken biblical theology, biblical exegesis, Old Testament history, New Testament history, Hebrew, Greek, you name it, I've probably taken it. So one of the typical arguments I hear from fundamentalists when I get into any kind of debate on this stuff is, oh, you're taking that scripture out of context. You don't know how to actually exegete the Bible, this and that. And so that kind of stuff's not going to fly here. Even though you might disagree with something I'm saying, I do know what I'm talking about, and we might just have a different viewpoint on the topic. So let's have a conversation, because what's so dangerous about that? If it's true, it will hold up to scrutiny. If it's actually true, it will hold up to questioning. See, there's this ridiculous notion I was constantly faced with growing up in church from other Christians, which is, don't question anything you believe because you open yourself up to deception and the devil will deceive you and you might believe something that's not true. That is nonsense. Questioning only leads to truth. True, authentic questioning only leads to truth. And when you pretend like you know something, when you pretend like you have it all figured out, that is arrogance. We must question everything with a humble heart, with a humble mindset of, I just want to know what's true. I don't care if it's something I don't believe. I don't care if I've been wrong about something. None of that matters to me more than knowing what is true. So in this video, I just want to present you with one simple idea. Question what you believe. Because questioning, if it's true, will validate what you believe. If it's real, if it's true, then questioning it, investigating it, will show it to be what it really is. It will stand firm. Because you can question gravity 100 different times, and 100 out of 100 times, it will prove to be true. And the same is true for anything in the universe that we experience. So we shouldn't be so hesitant to question things that we say we believe. Because if we truly want to know the truth more than anything else, then we should want to question everything. We should actually be actively questioning everything that we believe. Because when you truly know something, when you truly experience something, you don't need to believe it anymore. Belief is reserved for those who don't have experience. Once you experience it, you don't need to believe it anymore. I don't need to tell people I believe that I have a right hand. I experience my right hand. So it would be a strange question for someone to ask me, do you believe in your right hand? I would say, no, I don't believe in my right hand. I have a right hand. You will only ever be deceived by questioning what you believe if you're only questioning it because you want certainty so bad. You're just looking for something to give you comfort and certainty. Well, then pretty much anything someone says with confidence is going to convince you, right? So the healthiest and most intelligent way to question anything is with a paradigm that I call open-minded skepticism. Open-minded skepticism means I am open to accepting a new idea. I'm open to being wrong, but I'm skeptical. I'm not just going to believe anything you tell me. I'm going to approach everything with a skeptical mind until proven otherwise. I need to see logic, I need to see rationale, I need to see evidence before I just attach my belief to something. Because this is how people get deceived. This is how people believe in a bunch of nonsense that is toxic to their life because they were so quick to give their belief to something that they didn't verify. Whatever you believe should be verified by your personal experience, not by an intellectual concept. Concepts are unreliable, but experience is undeniable. So Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within you. So let me ask you this. Do you think that truth is a part of that kingdom? I'll bet you it is. And so if that's true, then you already possess all truth inside of you. Truth is perfect and complete. It is shining by itself. So it's not going to come do its best song and dance for you and present you with the truth. It's waiting for you to get your shit figured out because you're the one that's confused, not truth. So when you get yourself figured out and you're no longer contaminating the truth with your own ego, with your own ideas, then you can come and bow before its feet with a humble heart and say, I just want to know who you are. And truth will open its arms for you and everything will be seen clearly because you're now following this guiding center, as the Bible calls it, the still small voice of God. So the paradox in spirituality, which Jesus presented us with, is that everything you want, all the truth you want to know, is already inside of you. Because see, when you hear the truth, there's this little thing that goes off in here. And it's pretty subtle, but we all know exactly what I'm talking about. It's this little resonating energy that sort of vibrates to the frequency of truth. And you need to get really, really good at following that. You actually already know all truth. Because when you're listening to a speaker, every time you hear something that's true, you nod your head up and down in agreement. Wow, that's an amazing word, brother. Oh, that's so profound. How do you know? Why do you know it's profound? Because you already knew it was true. But it's the true self that knows what's true, not the psychological self. This guy up here is super confused and is very unreliable. And if you let him run the show, it's going to be a shit show. Give it to me straight, doctor. What do I got? Well, I regret to inform you, sir, that you have a chronic case of the shit show. Is it reversible, doc? I'm afraid it's not. It's irreversible. So if you can't learn to follow the still small voice, then you're screwed because now you have to leave it up to this guy to figure everything out. And this guy's changing his opinion every 5 seconds. This guy doesn't even really care what's true. It just cares what you think is most interesting. And that's very, very dangerous. If you want to know what's true, you need to learn how to shut this off real quick and start listening to the guiding light inside of you. And that is what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven. It's in every single one of us. It is our essential nature to know how to follow the voice of truth. But when we let the mind run the show, we start believing all kinds of ridiculous things. Because here's the thing, people are really good at sounding like they know what they're talking about. People are really good at convincing you of stuff that isn't true. Jim Jones convinced a room of 918 people to drink the Kool-Aid to usher them into the afterlife. And 918 people weren't listening to the still small voice and were listening to this guy, and they drank the Kool-Aid, and as we know, 918 people died of cyanide poisoning because they didn't question what they believed. And anyone who tells you not to question something, I would be very, very skeptical of that person. Another important question we can ask is, what good things have ever come by not questioning? Holy wars, mass genocides, burning humans alive at the stake, other atrocities. What advancements have been made in science, technology, philosophy, politics, religion, etc. from not questioning? Goose egg, right? Martin Luther questioned the traditional theology of the day, and of course we Christians herald Martin Luther as one of the heroes of the faith. Copernicus questioned the traditional model of the universe in his day, saying that I don't know about this Earth is the center of the solar system thing. I think maybe the sun's the center of the solar system. And the Catholic Church called him a heretic, locked him in a prison cell until he died. And it took the Catholic Church 500 years to acknowledge their mistake and finally rebury Copernicus in an honorable grave. It only takes the church 500 years to acknowledge a mistake. But here's the problem. If I have a room full of atheists, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Muslims, you name it, and I say, okay, everybody, raise your hand if you just want to know what's true. All you care about is the actual truth of reality. Nothing else matters to you. Raise your hand. And every single hand in the room goes up, right? So I would say, I don't know about that. I think a lot of you want your certitudes a little bit more. I think a lot of you want your comfort a little bit more. I think a lot of you like the idea of being right a little bit more than actually knowing what's true. Because if you did want to know what's true, you'd be questioning a lot of stuff because there's 10 different religions in this room and they can't all be right. But yet nobody's questioning what they believe. So you have to start by being honest and truthful with yourself that, okay, if I want to know what's true, I have to cast my ego aside. I have to be willing to admit that I might be wrong about something. And that's okay. That's good. That's healthy. Because guess what? You're wrong about 100 things a day. Everybody is. You cannot be right about everything. I know the ego likes to convince you otherwise, but I have news to you. Nobody has it all figured out. So the most intelligent approach to life is to acknowledge that fact that I don't know anything. And if I want to know what's true, then I need to begin with the recognition that I am flawed and I am not perfect. And when you do this, again, truth will present itself to you. When I started questioning some of the main tenets of the Christian faith, I naturally started to have a lot of conversations and debates with Christian friends and family who weren't so keen on my new viewpoints. And I found that it was very difficult, if not impossible, to have a conversation with any kind of fundamentalist person because they begin with the very arrogant assumption that they already know what's true. They already know everything. And they're just here to convince you why you're wrong and why you're a fool for not believing what they believe. So having an actual conversation when you can present new ideas, consider different viewpoints, is impossible. And they just continue to tout and shove this arrogance in your face as if it were some kind of spiritual virtue to be so arrogant. Let me tell you, son, the Bible's the Word of God, and if you don't believe it, well then you're gonna feel the wrath of it, brother. I'm already sick of you. Stop being so arrogant. Nobody knows everything. Nobody knows all truth. Reality is not that cut and dry. We learn about this in science. Every time we make a scientific discovery throughout all of our history, it's always vastly different than all of our presuppositions. Geology, quantum physics, evolution, molecular biology, thermodynamics, gravity, any of these scientific discoveries humans have made, it was never something where they went, oh yeah, I already knew that's how it worked. It was always something that made us go, whoa. We had no idea that this is how the universe actually works. Because that's the way an infinitely intelligent God has designed the universe. Everything you see around you is unimaginably complex and intelligently designed. And that's because God loves mystery. God doesn't love knowing everything and I've got everything figured out, brother. That's not the way the universe is. A lot of Christians tend to be so angry and so quick to try and shove everything down your throat and preach and wave the finger in your face. And that is a dead giveaway that you don't know what you're saying. You don't know what's true. Nobody goes around trying to angrily convince everyone that water's wet. There's no street corner preachers screaming that the sky is blue. When you actually know something that's true, you don't get angry about it. You don't need to shove it down people's throats. That's a defense mechanism of the ego, which is insecure about what it believes, and it wants to validate itself by forcing people to agree with it. But whatever's true is self-evident, because whatever's true is real, meaning it sets the agenda, meaning we're playing by its rules, not vice versa. And this whole notion of if you don't believe the right things, you will be tortured and held by God forever is the ultimate defense tactic of the ego to scare people into validating it. If you don't believe what I believe, well, you got a whole lot of suffering coming your way, brother, let me tell you. For example, your body is real, right? So you're playing by its rules. Your body sets the agenda, not you. So it doesn't do you any good to sit on the couch and eat like shit and never exercise and just expect your body will be healthy because you want it to be healthy. That's not the way it works, right? You're playing by its rules. So it doesn't do you any good to pretend like you know the truth. That is an anti-intellectual way of approaching life. So in this series, we are going to question everything. No holds barred, no holding back. Everything is getting put on the witness stand. And if it's true, then fear not, because it will hold up to scrutiny. And if it isn't true, then it will collapse like the house of cards that it always was. Because if something is true, then it was always true. And if it isn't true, then it was never true. So every Sunday at 10 a.m., join me here on my channel and let's have our own church service where we dive into the truths of Christianity, of theology, and the gospel of Jesus. So remember to leave your comments about this episode down below and I'll address those next week. And if you want to be notified about these posts, then click that bell icon next to the subscribe button and you'll get an update on your phone every time I upload one of these videos. And before we close, I want to leave you with one last important quote. This is the opening line in one of the most famous spiritual texts of all time called A Course in Miracles. And it says, "That which is real cannot be threatened. That which is unreal does not exist. And herein lies the peace of God."